And if you've got, in my experience, I've a lot of people, and I think, how did they become Muslim? There was one example of somebody becoming Muslim when I was in that basement flat in Kilburn. This guy came banging on my door in the middle of the night. I have to become Muslim! And I'm thinking, who are you? This big Nigerian guy, bang, 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 bang. I have to become Muslim. I says, okay. Now! I says, okay, this is how you become Muslim. So I told him what the word Shahada. I said the words of Shahada. I said, okay, so why do you have to become Muslim, and who are you, and why are you banging on my door? And he says, my wife is pregnant, and the baby has to be Muslim, and the baby can't be Muslim unless I'm Muslim, and she's Muslim. So I have to become Muslim first, and next you have to make her Muslim and teach her to make the baby Muslim. I'm thinking, I don't really understand what's going on here. And I says, but why have you come to me? He says, you don't know me. I says, I'm sorry. I drove you. I was a taxi driver. I'm thinking, how am I supposed to remember the taxi driver? He says, one day you threw him in my taxi. Oh, thanks. And I really don't know. But he remembered me getting in his taxi. And I'm pretty certain I didn't talk to him about Islam. I'm almost, because I don't talk to taxi drivers about anything except music and football. That's all I talk about most of the time anyway. And I'm pretty certain he didn't become Muslim through football and music. But later on, after I found out, I actually wore a turban that day, and that's why I took a taxi, because I was going somewhere important and I didn't want to take the train, so I took a taxi. And so he was the taxi driver, and we talked about whatever it was, football, but he had in his mind that man had a turban. That man was a Muslim, and I'm going to become Muslim. And it wasn't about Islam. It was about something. So if you have anything in you, it's a fadila. And so so what this says is, it talks about, if you want to understand fadila, you need to understand what are the qualities that are required. And it goes on, there is an implication of rank in the word fadila. The horse can never attain the fadila of the human being. Each time of the year has its fadila. Now we're in the time between Maghrib and Isha, which has its own fadila. We also are in the night of Jum'ah, which has its own fadila. We are about to enter into the month of Dhul Qa'dah, which has its own fadila, which is where I'm going to jump to next. The first hadith, the first point, the first narration, is actually a verse of Quran where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Inna iddat ashhur inda Allah ithna ashra shahran fi kitabillah yawma khalaqa as-samawati wal ard minha arba'atun hurum dhalika ad-din al-qayyim fala tadhlimu fihinna anfusakum. It means the number of months in the sight of Allah is 12 in a year. This is narration number 1, which is on page, if you have the book, actually it's on page 23. The number of months in the sight of Allah is 12 in a year, so ordained by Allah. The day He created the heavens and the earth, of them 4 are sacred. That is the straight usage. So wrong not yourselves therein. So He said there are 12 months in a year, وَعَرَبَةً حُرُمْ. And most people think that when you say, what's the most important month of the year? They say, Puasa. Huh? Or actually it's not. I've realized now, after visiting in the month of Shawwal, it's actually not the month of Puasa, but it's the month of Hari Raya, which lasts for a month. Ajib. I really didn't believe it when people told me that in Malaysia, Hari Raya lasts for a month. Ajib. But they are not the months of which are hurum. They are not the sacred months. Allah subhanahu, Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam says, وَقَالَ رَسُولُ اللَّهِ صَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وَسَلَّمَ إِنَّ الزَّمَانَ قَدْ اسْتَدَارَ. Time rotates. Time rotates, and that's a very beautiful word. You think about the word rotating. Time rotates. Just reflect on that sentence for a minute. I'll reflect, and then you can reflect in your own way. I came here about 6 years ago. Alhamdulillah, as the brother said, I've been here many times, but I specifically remember 6 years ago because I met Maulana Afifuddin in Denmark, and I was in a really difficult state, and things had been going on in my life that I didn't talk to anybody about. Anybody. And I went to Denmark, and my intention was to see Shaykh Afifuddin. And somebody said, you need to see Shaykh Afifuddin privately. They could see something was happening. And I went to him, and he says, tell me. Tell me what's happening to you. And I spoke to him. And I cried because of all the things that have been building up for such. And he says, don't worry. Do this dhikr. And I promise you everything will be fine. And come and see me. Leave your work, just come and see me. And then we parted. And then I came. A couple of weeks later, I was here, and Shaykh Afifuddin turned to the Jama'ah, and he says, we're going to do Salat al-Hajah. There are several people in this room who have hajat, have needs. Some people are sick, some people are... He said, and then we did Salat al-Hajah here in Jama'ah. And then I left. And I didn't come back for another 2 years to this room. The next time I came with my newborn son. And Sheikh Khalid, his brother, Shaykh Afifuddin's brother, came with his newborn son. I don't know if anybody remembers that occasion, but Shaykh Afifuddin did the tahniq of 2 babies on the same day. His nephew, Sheikh Khalid's son, and my son, Idris. And then I realized I prayed Salat al-Hajah here behind Shaykh Afifuddin, and now Shaykh Afifuddin is holding my baby doing his tahniq. And then I left. And I didn't come back until today. Well, a couple of days ago. So at zaman yadir. Time changes, it rotates. You go through phases in your life, and there are some things which are constant and some things which change so radically. And that's an example of the radical change of my personal life over the space of a couple of years. Now you must have gone through the same kind of experiences where time just changes. But if you have something constant in your life, if there's some constancy in it, then that time has meaning. But if it doesn't have something constant, then it just goes round and round and round and round and round and round. I don't know how many times I went to see Nottingham Forest play. I was a season ticket holder. We won the European Championship twice. But it just goes round and round and round and round with no significance. I certainly watch Nottingham Forest play more often than I've been to Dar al-Jailani. But they don't have anything which is solid. It just goes round and round and round. And that's what the Prophet ﷺ says. Inna zaman istadar kahayatihi. But time actually continues as it was created. Yawma khalaqa as-samawati wal ard, on the day on which Allah created the heavens and the earth. So the heavens and earth are going to go round and 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 round. And it's just going to go on and on and on and on. And you go and visit graves, and you see this person died this year, this person died that year, and this person died 100 years ago. And I was fortunate enough to go to Penang the other day, and the first thing I wanted to do when I saw this old graveyard was to see which grave was the oldest. I'm just a bit creepy like that. I like to find old graves because it gives a meaning to time. That's what time is like. One day somebody's going to be coming to my grave and saying, he died on such and such a date. I was in Singapore once, and that same year when I talked about coming here, and I looked, and the train passed, and I saw a reflection of myself. And I said, there's my dad. And I looked and I said, there's my dad. I haven't seen my dad for years, but there he is in the train. Of course it's not, it's a reflection of me. I have become my dad. I became my dad. And I was thinking, that's pretty cool. Of all the people I'd like to become, I can't become my mum. I would like to, but I can't. But if I can't become my mum, I want to become my dad. And I have. And one day, I'll be where my dad is, which is in the ground. And that's cool as well. That's all right. إن الزمان قد استدار كهيئة يوم خلق السماوات والأرض السنة 12 شهرا. The year has 12 months. منها عربة حرم. 4 of them are sacred. Hurum, is that the right translation for sacred? It's a good translation. It's all right, because haram is a difficult word. Haram, hurma, harim. All of these words, they kind of mean different things. Let me explain again with a story. Sayyidina Adam was created, as we said. And then he came down to the earth, as we talked about, those that were with us yesterday, to the earth, and then he ended up going to Makkah. And then he wanted something from the Jannah to be descended. Allah sent down the white stone, which became black, and then he placed it in a tent. He placed it in a tent so that it was to be a place of worship. And that tent is where the Kaaba is. But then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, before that happened, before he descended it, he sent down the angels to expel all of the jinn. So that when the heaven descended upon this earth, the jinn would not be present. And then he banished them. And he sent the angels to build a wall. Not a real wall, a spiritual wall around where the white stone would be descended. And this boundary was a boundary of angels. And then he sent down the black stone. And this is what we call the Haram. We call it Masjid al-Haram because it has this Huram, this status. Now, what do you call women in Islam? Harim. Why do we call women Harim? Why do we call women Harim? Because they're haram? They're not all haram. They're delicate. Huh? Unless you marry, then they become okay. They're haram. Okay, but the real reason is because they have status. And the reason why, because the harim is not actually just women, they are specific women. And actually, it's not just women, because the real meaning of harim are those people around you who you protect. So your children are actually part of your harim. But once they can protect themselves, then they're no longer part of your harim. And the word harim, when it's translated into English, becomes the most horrible word. A harim is a brothel. If you look at the synonym, but it's actually the exact opposite in English, is those who you put around. I can see how you hold your children. It's so beautiful because it explains what the word harim means. And they say, so, what's your name? Huh? Khadija. What a beautiful name. And your sister? Maryam. Khadija and Maryam. Khadija and Maryam look so comfortable, don't they? And they look so happy. And if anybody disturbs them, I'm sure their father will kill them. Right? He looks so sweet and innocent, and as if he would not ever harm anybody. But I'm pretty certain he will kill anybody that hurts Khadija or Maryam. Sah? Yeah. He's smiling because he says, no one's going to ever hurt them. It's not possible. If you lived in Kilburn, you'd have to think about this. Because the harim is the ones who you will kill if anybody upsets them. Anyone done Hajj? Anyone done Hajj with Nigerians? The best people to do Hajj with is Nigerians or Indonesians. in my experience. Why? Because when I've done Hajj and taken groups, it's usually with people from Britain, and most people from Britain are Pakistanis, which is fine, alhamdulillah. But when you travel with Nigerians, my experience is that Nigerians are big and strong. And if you stand behind the Nigerians when they do tawaf, it's absolutely fine. Just sneak into the Nigerian Jama'ah and you're fine. And somehow the Indonesians, they are small, but they knock the Nigerians over. And they all wear the same batik. So I used to go to one particular Jama'ah and just see if I could borrow somebody's batik, at least pretend to be an Indonesian. And they'd say, oh, well, he's not one of us, but at least he's wearing our uniform. And the Nigerians, and they just boom! And alhamdulillah, the reason I'm saying that is because my Jama'ah are not so powerful. But what we do is when we do have a Jama'ah, we organize ourselves. Okay, you have a sister, you put your sister here, and you stand there. Your sister, your mother, your wife. Okay, actually your wife should go there. Put your mother there, sister there, and you stand there. You're alone. You're a single guy. You stand next to him. So we've got a group of women in the middle with the most delicate in the middle. And then those that are got men with them, they stand towards the end. And then outside you've got and then you hide behind the Nigerians. What is meant by the harem is this: we build a fortress around them. And that's what you're doing. But you're doing it in such a loving way that it's actually the reality of what the harem is. And that's what the real meaning is. So, minha arabatun hurum. Of the 12 months, 4 of them have these protection around them. They're special. And let me just point out, Hari Raya is not one of them. Okay? Even Puasa isn't one of them. Okay? Ramadan isn't one of them. He says, Minha Arabatun Hurum. Thalatha Mutawaliyat. 3 of them come together. Dhul Qa'da, Dhul Hijjah, Wal Muharram. Wal Rajab, Al Mudhar. Rajab, Mudhar. Rajab is the month of Mudhar, which is the tribe of the Prophet ﷺ. So these 3 months are sacred. So we're about to enter into the sacred month. And what's meant by this? Allah said in the verse, "La تظلموا فيهن." Don't wrong yourselves in them. Does that mean it's okay to wrong yourselves in the month of Hari Raya? Huh? No. It means do not wrong yourselves in any month, but especially not in these 3 months. So we're about to enter into a month which is among the sacred months. Ibn Abbas, he said that just out of respect to the greatness of the month, the reward for all actions in them are increased, and likewise the punishment. And did we even know that it's happening on Saturday? This is why we need to be aware of time, because Saturday becomes the sacred month. Friday is not the sacred month. So the prayer that you do today will have more value on Saturday. So now we need to prepare. So this is what the first hadith is. It mentions, and I'm just gonna finish with one other hadith to do with Friday. I'm just trying to decide which of the many beautiful hadith to choose. So time goes in waves. So if you can link your life to the waves of time, then you will live in tune with what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants. So, and you will live a natural life. You'll live a life which is in tune with the heavens and the earth. And that's really what we should be striving for. Does that mean you can't have fun? I just had a thought. Does that mean you can't have fun? Because I just said Hari Raya is over now. Tomorrow it's finished, all right? Dhul Qa'dah gets serious. Does that mean fun is no? No. The Prophet ﷺ was in a gathering and people were coming to him and reciting Quran and he was checking them and Sayyidina Abu Bakr was sitting a little bit of distance and then somebody came and read Quran and then he stopped reading Quran and he started reciting poetry. And this wasn't poetry which was like high level, beautiful, spiritual poetry, it was just poetry. It was nice, but it's poetry. Not uplifting poetry, just ordinary poetry. And then Sayyidina Abu Bakr came and he says, Al-Quran wa share? They read Quran and then they read poetry? And the Prophet ﷺ turned to him, Ya Abu Bakr, sa'atan sa'atan. A time for this, a time for that. Literally, an hour. If you take it literal translate, sa'atan sa'atan means a time for this and a time for that. A time for this and a time for that. And you are allowed to have. In fact, in another narration, the Prophet ﷺ says, Rawwihu qulubukum sa'atan sa'atan. Give your hearts peace, an hour for this and an hour for that. An hour for this and an hour for that. I'll give you another story of my Shaykh, Habib Ahmed Mashur al-Haddad. He was so soft and gentle, it's unbelievable. He was really, really knowledgeable, but the most important thing I remember about him is how kind and gentle he was. And he never rebuked people, he never told people off. Now, one of his grandsons, same age as me, started to get into music. And he bought a keyboard and started playing, and his dad was thinking, what's happening to my son? He's gone astray. I think I should speak to Al-Habib. So he went to Al-Habib, who is his father, and says, could you speak to my grandson, your grandson, my son? He says, okay. He's starting into music, he's leaving the deen, and of course he wasn't, he was just into music. So he called his grandson and he says, so, I heard you like music. He says, yes. I heard you're playing an instrument. He says, yes. What is it? Keyboard. He says, are you good? He says, I'm learning. He says, okay, be good. The Prophet ﷺ says, كتب الإحسان على كل شيء. Allah كتب الله الإحسان على كل شيء. Allah wrote excellence in everything. So if you're going to learn the keyboard, learn it well. Do it well. Don't just play with this thing. Be a good musician. And the father, no. That's not what. He says, do it well. You should practice every week. Wednesday is a good day to practice. Practice on Wednesday. And you know who you should call? Abdul Aziz. And Umar bin Hamid. Yeah, you, Abdul Aziz, Umar bin Hamid. In fact, in 3 months' time, I want you to perform. You, Abdul Aziz, Umar bin Hamid, and some others like Adnan. You call them all of the. Okay, you promise me? You promise me you will do well. And in 3 months you'll be able to perform for me? And this is a face. No, Habib. And what happened? Why did he choose Wednesday? Because in Jeddah, football night is Wednesday. And it's also the night Habib doesn't teach. So all the boys, they gather together to watch the football. So instead of gathering to watch the football, which we did, anyway, after the football was over, what did he do? He got out his keyboards and he started to practice. And of course he told Umar bin Hamid and said Adnan and to do the qasaid. So he learnt the qasaid through the keyboard. 3 months later, we were in Mecca, a big gathering of all of the ulama, and he called, Aina firqat al-Haddad? He says, where's the band, the Haddad band? I says, what's firqat al-Haddad? And then he says, called his grandson, come, bring your band with you. And there in front of all of the ulama, they did this qasaid, and he was brilliant. Sa'atan, sa'atan. a time for this and a time for that. You need to, it's not about that you can't have fun. It means you need to understand when and how and be focused in everything that you do, including your enjoyment. You need to plan. One of the best things Alia did, she does many things for me, my niece. I asked her advice this morning. Should I prepare the dars or should I go swimming? Guess what she said? Yeah, you could tell the dars is completely unprepared. But at least when I come, I'm not stressed. I'm clear and my mind is fresh. And at least I know which stories make sense. Otherwise I'd just be talking a load of rubbish stories. Well, at least I'm telling you loads of stories, but the story's got a theme. And hopefully there might be some benefit. And the person you should thank for that is Alia. Because she said, go swimming now. Don't eat, go swimming. I'm more bossy than my wife. And of course, why did she say don't eat? Because you can't swim if you've eaten. See, wisdom, sa'atan. So even your pleasure you should organize. And when the Prophet says, Rawwihu qulubukum, bring your hearts to rest, to peace. Sa'atan. It means actually there's a time where you need to take a break. You can't study continually. You need to take a break. The Prophet ﷺ, he used to sit in a dars like this, and the companions used to sit like pigeons were on their heads. They would not move. What did the Prophet ﷺ do? He got up and left. Because they're not going to get up and leave. So he got up and left. Why? Because of the intensity of what was happening. He left to make it easy for them. And then he'd come back. Because their hearts were now at peace, so they could take more. And that's important. When you're doing your revision, your studies, you plan your time. Anyway, I said I was going to read from one hadith. I think what I'll do is I won't read, I did bring the Arabic, but there was one beautiful one I wanted to read. Perhaps it's a little bit of a story in English. It was reported on the, it's just, for those that have it, it's page 209, I think, hadith, narration 251. It's reported on the authority of Abu Hurairah, who said, I went out to the mount and met Ka'b al-Ahbar. And I sat with him. He told me things from the Torah, and I told him things that the Messenger of Allah, upon him be peace, had told me. Among the things I told him was that the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, the best day upon which the sun rises is Friday. So let's go, what's the context of this story? Sayyidina Abu Hurairah, he left Al-Madinah to go to Jerusalem. And on the way he stopped at Mount Tur, Jabal Tur, just outside of Mecca, and he went to meet a man called Ka'b al-Ahbar. Ka'b al-Ahbar was a man who was learned in the tradition of the Jews and the Christians. So he said, this is what the Prophet ﷺ taught us. On it, Adam was created, Friday. On it, he was sent out of the garden on Friday. On it, he was turned towards Allah. He made Tawbah. On it, he died. And every beast listens in reverence from the moment it wakes until the sun rises with its evening glow, except for the jinn and the humankind. So all plants, all animals on Fridays listen carefully. They pay special attention to the day of Friday. This is the status of a Friday. In it, during it, is an hour that no Muslim slave will be praying, petitioning Allah, making dua, except that he will be granted it. So, Ka'b says, a day in every year. And then Abu Hurairah says, no, it's Friday, meaning every week. And Ka'b al-Ahbar read from the Torah, and he said, so he started to read from the Torah. Sadaqa Rasulullah, your messenger did speak the truth. And Ka'b al-Ahbar read from the Torah, and then he said, the messenger spoke the truth. And then Abu Hurairah said, I met Basr bin Abul Basr al-Ghifari, and he said, where did you meet? He said, at the mount. And I said, if I had come across you before you had left, you would not have gone out. In other words, he said, you shouldn't have gone out there, because you're only allowed to go for 3 places for ibadah, to Mecca, Medina, and to Jerusalem. So anyway, that was something. He says, you wasted your time. Do not go on a journey except to 3 mosques. They are the sacred mosque of Mecca, to the mosque of Ilia, meaning Jerusalem, and And he was unsure of what was the third one. Of course, he meant Masjid al-Nabawi. And then Abu Hurairah said, I met Abdul ibn Salam and I spoke to him about my meeting with Ka'b al-Ahbar. So after that he came and he met Abdul ibn Salam. Abdul ibn Salam was formerly the leader, a Jewish rabbi. And so he met him and he told him the story of what had happened. And he said, when Ka'b al-Ahbar had said it's every year, he was wrong. And then when he said it was every day, every week, he spoke the truth. Ka'b spoke the truth, said Abdul ibn Salam. And indeed, it's true about the hour, and I know when it is. So Abdul ibn Salam is saying, and I know when it is. So Ka'b al-Ahbar may know about the Torah, and it says in the Torah when it is, but it doesn't say specific. It says that there is an hour. He says, I know exactly when it is. So Abu Hurairah is obviously going to ask him. He says, so when? He says, it is the last hour of Friday. And of course the day begins with Maghrib and finishes with Maghrib. So the last hour is the hour before Maghrib on a Friday. And he says, no, that's wrong. Abu Hurairah is telling him it's wrong. He says, because the Prophet ﷺ says, there's an hour when the Muslim stands in prayer. And of course, the last between Asr and Maghrib, you don't stand in prayer. So you've got it wrong, Abdul ibn Salam. He says, how can it be the last hour when the Messenger of Allah, it is an hour when no Muslim slave will be praying. And during that hour, there's no prayer. And so Abdul ibn Salam replies, did the Messenger of Allah not say, whoever sits waiting for the prayer is in the state of prayer? So Abdul ibn Salam wins the argument with the wisdom. So the last hour of Friday is the most blessed time of the week. It's the time when all du'as will be answered. Indeed it is, he says. So that's just a flavour of the book. The book begins with talking about the sacred months, and then it ends, towards the end there's a chapter on Ramadan, on Friday and Thursday and Wednesday and Monday, because they all have different special. If you want dua to destroy your enemies, do you know when that best time to do it is? Wednesday afternoon, after Dhuhr. Wednesday after Dhuhr. How do I know? Because the Prophet ﷺ, in the most difficult battle he faced was Khandaq. Khandaq was a day in which they actually prayed all 5 prayers in one go, because the battle was so intense. It was where they were, the level of fear of the companions was at its highest ever in any other battle. And the Prophet ﷺ made dua on Monday, and he made dua on Tuesday, and he made dua on Wednesday. And it was Wednesday after Dhuhr that Allah sent the wind to destroy the enemy. And then among the companions they said, we made dua on Monday, we made dua on Tuesday, and we made dua on Wednesday. And it was Wednesday when the dua was answered. So I know that Wednesday after Dhuhr is the time to make the dua. And among them, they says every Wednesday after Dhuhr they would gather together to make dua against their enemies. And there's a chapter on Wednesdays and on Thursdays and on Mondays and on Fridays. And there's also a chapter on fasting in 3 days and what the 3 days you should fast, etc. So it is a beautiful book. It is a very blessed book, and I think it's blessed because of the Imam that wrote it. Imam al-Bayhaqi is an absolutely amazing Imam. He wrote over 1,000 books. You can't imagine what writing 1,000 books is. It's just I can't. And alhamdulillah, it's translated with the permission of Maulana Afifuddin, Shaykh Afifuddin. And of course I told you that one word was the key to the whole translation. So alhamdulillah, it's a blessing. And we ask Allah to give us more blessing in our time. Allahumma barik lana fi awqatina. Allahumma barik lana fi awqatina. Allahumma barik lana fi awqatina. Allahumma barik lana fi awladina. Wa la tadarrahum wa afaqhum lit-ta'a warzuqna birrahum. وصلى اللهم على سيدنا محمد وآله وصحبه وسلم تسليما. اللهم افتح لنا بالخير واختم لنا بالخير واجعل عواقب أمورنا بالخير بيدك الخير والعافية إنك على كل شيء قدير. دعواهم فيها سبحانك اللهم وتحيتهم فيها السلام. آخر دعواهم أن الحمد لله رب العالمين.